Well, yes. We're just waiting for this to finish.
Ah,
You're happy for it to not use it? Okay, and I'll just use the.
yes.
Perfect, okay.
Now I understand what you just.
Sorry, my Australian accent and language.
It's not my first language.
No, that's right.
This is
Fine.
Yeah.
So, welcome everyone to our final presentation with Kalliopi, who is our presenter today, and we're going to be looking at from struggle to story. So it sounds really positive, empowering dyslexic students through digital narratives. So welcome, and I look forward to listening to your presentation.
Thank you for your kind introduction. I will start presenting, and I'm going to speak today about digital storytelling and dyslexia. I will present part of my PhD research. And so let's start. When we talk about digital storytelling, we talk about a modern expression of the art of storytelling. Under the current research project, digital storytelling is defined as a process of generating a digital story on an educational topic on a digital platform. The story can be both written and enriched with multiple modes, such as with visuals, with sounds. And also the designer of the story, the storyteller, can use their voice to record their stories, to communicate their messages. So the digital story is multimodal. And why this is important? There is evidence that experimentation with digital multimodal texts is necessary for students' development as readers and writers. I approached this via critical and cultural lens. There is evidence that digital storytelling fosters critical thinking and cultural competence in primary, typically developing students. It also enables playful thinking. What is playful thinking? It is the experimentation with diverse modes of communication, such as with text, with images, with sound. And it's also about changes about experimentation in the same mode of communication. For instance, where to place and how to change the size of the same image to communicate something you want. So the research is more focused on typically developing students, primary typically developing students. When I'm considering digital storytelling and struggling writers, there are suggestions that students who perform at low levels of in writing are able to show highly communicative skills when they integrate words with other semiotic resources, or in other words, with other modes. And there are also suggestions and research that support that digital storytelling can enhance writing skills for struggling writers. For instance, in one of their research, Sylvester and Greenwich found that when students, struggling writers, created a story using a digital storytelling platform, they managed to create a more coherent text, because they could revise more easily their text and found omissions and gaps. My research came to fill this gap about the population of dyslexic students. There's also a need from a social cultural perspective to consider the multimodal nature of literacies in the context of digital storytelling. What does this mean? Traditionally, literacy was about reading and writing printed text. Nowadays, the term literacy has expanded to literacies to include all the diverse modes and means of communication. So from a social cultural perspective, this means that students create meaning, engage with literacies based also on their social and cultural backgrounds. They use modes to communicate based on their cultural social backgrounds. For instance, when a student live in a city, probably they will use pictures which present city life. And this, it comes from their social backgrounds, from their way they live. And digital storytelling can combine all these modes of communication into one experience, enabling students, dyslexic students, to use diverse modes, not just text, to communicate their messages more effectively, given the context. In my research, I have adapted Green's rating model, according to cultural. The operational is about the skills relating to reading, to speaking, to writing in digital context. While the cultural is about discover and express meaning with cultural context, and the critical is about reflection. It's about stepping back, make questions, and do meta-analysis on your digital work. Let's say dyslexia. Well, dyslexia, I have approached dyslexia via holistic lens. I have adapted a three-level frame, according to which dyslexia is perceived at the biological, at the cognitive, and at a behavioral level. The biological is about the genetic and the genetic and neurobiological factors. The cognitive level is about the difficulties in working memory, slow processing, in phonological awareness. And the behavioral is about the spelling and the reading difficulties that the students face. As educators, we can intervene in the behavioral level and change our practices and change the way that we help students to approach the knowledge. In the UK, there is a new definition of dyslexia, according to which dyslexia is a set of processing difficulties that primarily affect reading and spelling. Dyslexia's progression is influenced by both genetic and environmental factors, and dyslexia often overlaps with other developmental difficulties. The new definition aligns the three-level framework in terms of perceiving dyslexia as a multifaceted condition. In order now to frame dyslexia and writing challenges, I have adapted the not-so-simple view of writing, according to which writing is a process of transcription skills, of executive functions, and of text generation, all of which brought to work in the working memory. Transcription is about spelling, handwriting, and keyboarding. Executive functions are about self-regulation strategies, behaviors, and text generation is about converting ideas into written into text, all of which can be difficult for students with dyslexia. For instance, if a student thinks a lot about how to spell a word, then less cognitive working memory resources are available for self-regulation behaviors, such as for how organized their text, for how self-monitoring their text. So, in my research, I have adapted a pre-experimental A-B design, where A stands for the baseline assessment and B for the intervention. I observed improvements on the same individuals over time, comparing the individuals with themselves and not by comparing different individuals. And also have adapted a mixed methods approach, gathering both qualitative and quantitative data. The research conducted in a primary mainstream school in northern Greece, and 13 students who had a formal diagnosis of dyslexia participated. The students were studied at the 6th grade. Now I'm going to present you the framework which the activities took place. Here I'm going to present the framework related to the baseline assessment. So, students informed about the activities via raising hands, then group discussion was carried out in order to answer potential questions and give more information. Students chose their topic between suggested. Groups then were split out based on their choice of topic. Students who chose the same to choose the same topic being in the same group. The students identified the purpose and the audience of their writing, and they shared what they already know about the topic via their groups and the whole class. Students then identified areas they wish to explore further, prompted by the researcher, conducted follow-up research on the library on the topic in the library, organized their stories maps, and created their story on paper. Revised their work based on self-assessment checklists, received feedback and comments, make final edits, and then discussed on how they are going to disseminate their story. Moving now to the intervention phase, students were introduced to StoryJammer. StoryJammer was the digital storytelling platform. Chose their topic, again that we suggested. Groups were split up based on their topic of preferences, identify the purpose and the audience of their writing. They shared what they already know about the topic, identify areas they want to explore further, conduct follow-up research on this area, and now they organize the key elements of their stories in the boxes of the digital storyboard. The students typing their script while they add images, sounds, and voice recordings. Here I would like to say that each student follow a different design pattern, a different author path. For instance, some students first putting their images and then they put their text. The students revise their work using the self-assessment checklist and spell checker as supportive tools, revised, received feedback and comments in group discussions, made final edits, and discussed their groups the way of disseminating their stories. My first research question was about how might digital storytelling can influence a variety skills of primary school students with dyslexia, including spelling, semantic difficulties, and self-regulation behaviors. What the results showed? The greatest reductions were in stress errors, followed by reductions in orthographic, primary punctuation, grammatical, and phonological errors. All these results are presented in box plots. Related to the semantic errors in word level, the most significant reduction were omissions of the words, followed by repetitions and missing interword space. And these also are presented via box plots. Related to the self-regulation behaviors, all of them were rated pre- and post-intervention by 2 raters. And now I will present the behaviors with the most significant differences pre- and post-intervention. Students showed improvement in make research on the topic of writing, determine the digital resources to search, organize the structure of the plot, select modes of conveying the message, check and correct the spelling of the word and punctuation, make final changes, and select means of disseminating their stories. And interviews were conducted students, and these are the themes and some themes that were emerged. I have included some statements. I'm going to read one statement of a student, which under the self-regulation behavior self-monitoring, identify a writing mistakes. The computer reader line showed my spelling mistakes, so I knew when something was wrong. It made it easier to correct them before I forgot. Moving on to considering the second research question, this was about how might digital storytelling influence the self-perception of students about themselves as writers. Here are also the themes and some themes that were emerged during the first interview, pre-intervention. Negative feelings toward traditional writing, neutral attitudes towards traditional writing, negative self-perception as writers, writing difficulties, and familiarity with digital storytelling. Here are some statements of what students said before the intervention. For instance, participant 3 said, I'm not a good writer. I make a lot of spelling mistakes and mistakes in using words. These are the themes that were emerged post-intervention via interviews with students, with the same students. Positive attitudes, plural writing, positive self-perceptions as writers, and mitigate writing difficulties. Here are some statements. I'm going to read one of them. I could write much faster on a computer. Typing my ideas was less time consuming than writing by hand, which helps me stay productive. The third research question was about to what extent digital storytelling enables students to bring their own perspective in the creation of their stories, and considering the context. This also the cultural behaviors with the most significant difference. Make meaningful decisions for their sources based on their experience, choose modes that are making meaning to them, choose modes that are making meaning to their intended audience, draw on their own experience in the creation of the script, and allow feelings and thoughts to shape the production experience. These are also the themes and the sub-themes that emerged via the interviews. For instance, one student said that the sad guitar music was for when the story spoke about the consequences of war. All we can understand that this sound means sadness. Or one student said they will be able to listen to it if they cannot read well and struggle. For example, if they have dyslexia, like me. And the last research question was about to what extent digital storytelling enables students to reflect critically on their stories. These are the behaviors with the most significant differences. Reflect critically, why did I choose these sites with this formation? Why did I choose these modes? Reflect critically on their choices and reflect on their choices of means of dissemination. These are also the themes and the sub-themes related to the interview questions about critical thinking, and it's also the statements. I'm going just to read one statement. For instance, I had to think about what picture would show the calm emotions of peace and put it in the correct path within the text. The contribution. As you can see, a different framework were developed, including all the phases, the pre-production, the production, and the distribution. This framework is adaptable and can support differentiated learning and enable students to use diverse modes of communication, to use their voice to convey what they want to say. Also, it includes the 3 core domains of digital writing, the cultural, the critical, self-regulation, and enhance student self-perception, builds their confidence. And finally, policymaker. They can recommend the integration of digital storytelling into initial trainer education and ongoing development and professional development, and names calls for resources for access to devices and public sharing students' work. Do I have time?
You've got time. You've got a minute and a half.
Okay. I would like just to show you one of the book of students is in the Greek language. Okay. Here it writes peace versus war. And this is the introduction. Okay.
Τι είναι ο πόλεμος? Ο πόλεμος είναι όταν μια χώρα πολεμάει μια άλλη. Κάπως έτσι είναι ο πόλεμος. Όταν τελειώσει ο πόλεμος θα υπάρχουν συνέπειες. Δεν ξέρω, πάμε να ρωτήσουμε κάποιον άλλο. Όταν τελειώσει ο πόλεμος θα υπάρχουν συνέπειες.
Ναι, θα υπάρχουν.
In this stage, students asked me to participate in their stories to be the teacher, the grandmother that asked for a question, and the grandmother symbolized for these students the wisdom. This is why they put it.
Όπως?
Θα υπάρξουν πείνα, σκοτωμή, δίψα και καταστροφές.
Πόλεμος, καλυφθείτε. Γίνεται πόλεμος, βοήθεια. Τρέξτε να σωθείτε.
And
Ένα χρόνο μετά το χωριό έχει ξεχάσει πως είναι η ειρήνη και την αναζητά. Παιδιά, πώς είναι η ειρήνη? Όντως, πώς να ήταν άραγε η ειρήνη?
Ούτε εγώ δεν θυμάμαι.
10 μέρες μετά.
as you can see, students usually
Επιτέλους ειρήνη. Τελείωσε ο πόλεμος. Ελευθερία.
and this is the end. As you can see, students use diverse modes of expressing what they want to say. In the picture of the war, they used relatable sounds, and in the use of peace, when they spoke about peace, they used more calm music. And this is our article. It's about Bible study. I presented part of the main study. If you'd like to receive more information, now two of our papers are under review. Hopefully, I think it will be soon in the audience. So thank you for your attendance.
Thank you so much for sharing your research.